Breaking news on Mark Gahey. Apparently the deal's edging closer. Let's talk about it here on Toon Tactics TV. Good to see you guys.
Brilliant from Sham. And now Murphy can take on the shot. Fabian Sham
All right, folks, how is everybody doing? It's your man here, Philip from Toon Tactics TV. I hope everybody's well this evening. I hope everybody is doing good. So I was going to start the show with the match review from yesterday, but then obviously we've got this news here on Mark Gahey, and I know that to this point, everybody's, from what I can see on social media, at least people are at least a little bit now transfer exhausted, transfer weary. I don't know what the the terminology would be, but I'm not going to say we're getting closer. I'm not going to say this or that's happening. I'm just going to show you what the news is reporting, and this is obviously, so our man Mouth of the Time is reporting this via Mr. McGrath, Mike McGrath, through the Telegraph, I think it is as well. And that is that Newcastle United have tonight moved closer to signing of England centre-back Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace and Newcastle. And that's, you can literally rinse and repeat that line dozens of times throughout these recent weeks and probably months now. But the next section and says the two clubs are close to reaching agreement and are now only 5 million apart in terms of agreeing fee. Now, I feel already deceived because I was like, okay, edging closer, meaning they've agreed on the fee. They're ready to advance. We already know that that Mark Gahey is keen, very keen to join a Newcastle United, and it's just simply a fee to be agreed. Now, we were 20 million apart. Now apparently we're 5 million apart. I mean, how do you guys feel about this saga? I mean, is it just part of life, especially when you're competing for the big signatures, the big signings? You're going to have to go through these type of lengthy processes, especially when you're trying to get signings from other clubs in the Premier League. Now, the latest, obviously, that we all heard is that Mark Gahey is, Newcastle were prepared to pay anything from 60 million to 70 million, 65 million for Mark Gahey. You guys let me know in the comments and in the chats, is Mark Gahey worth 65 million? Big question mark. For me personally, I'll be real, I think that he's 45 million pounds max player. And this isn't, I'm not going to go, because I'm going to make some comparisons, statistical comparisons between Mark Gahey, Edmund Tapsoba, Dazarsi and Fabian Shaw in a moment. And so this isn't a show where I'm going to start trying to play down Mark Gahey, his skills and abilities, not at all. And he doesn't decide what his price is, what his value is. That is something that has been determined from Crystal Palace and Newcastle United. I guess all I'm trying to robustly figure out is with you guys is he worth 65 million in today's transfer market? If I compare him, and we will do so in a moment, to the other defenders, but if I compare him to the defenders that we already had, obviously we bought Sven Botman for 35 million from AC Milan. And I would say that Botman is worth just as much as Mark Gahey. What do you guys think? And I think possibly even more. But there are other things that you can include in that. And the fact is, if as we are going to make comparisons, Mark Gahey is already Premier League proven. We've got a comment here: 65 million with 2 years left on his. Let me put this on the comments. Dave Eddie, good to hear from you, sir. So 65 million with 2 years left on his contract. Tough call, but I would welcome him in. And you know what, Davey? I would too. You know, I think the 65 million is probably down to the fact that Mark Gay obviously is very much Premier League proven. He's obviously now started his England career, and he had a solid display in the Euros or whatnot. So that's done him well. The other factor I think is that obviously he's a former Chelsea academy graduate, so he'll be very well known to Livramento. He'll be very well known to Hall, even though obviously he's a couple years older than them. But he'll also be known to Gordon and Madueke from their England days. So there is a lot of kind of things, just not just to do with ability and talent, which is very, very important, which is why clubs are interested in players in the first place, but also would us players, how well will players integrate with certain teams and the team culture? And certainly Mark Gay, he would obviously slot right in. As we know, he has a friendship with Anthony Gordon already, Livramento, Hall, and obviously if this rumours are true, Madueke potentially coming in, there's already that kind of camaraderie between Madueke, Gordon, obviously from their under-21 England days when they won the Euros, and now Mark Gahey. So there's a lot to be said in terms of the price itself, and there's some real key reasons as to why Eddie Howe wants Mark Gahey in his team. So and we're going to now go into the comparisons. Obviously, in terms of value, we've obviously heard the rumours of Edmund Tapsoba coming up today, as well as Axel Disasi, and I think there was another gentleman, but his name eludes me. So if anyone in the chat remembers who that third person is, we might also include him. So I'm going to take this off my screen, but very, very interesting conversation around player values. And look, I don't know about you guys, but I sense that we're never really going to know what the true value or price will be. I think what's going to end up happening is the transfer is going to be undisclosed. The fee is going to be undisclosed. We're never really going to know. And the fact that Newcastle are going in for him, obviously Paul Mitchell, Eddie Howe, and in my opinion, you guys let me know, so far, I think most, if maybe not all, Newcastle's transfers since the takeover, for me, have been the right transfers, and especially value for money. You guys can name me maybe in the chat some of the more questionable transfers, and I'll make a comment on them. But I think so far they've been very good. So essentially, who am I? Who am I to disagree with Paul Mitchell and Eddie Howe, I suppose? In terms of for value for players, it's still good to see us going big for players, for competing for good players at the end of the day. So this is the comparison. This is obviously on Squawka website. For anybody who's not aware of the Squawka website, it's really, really good, especially looking at player stats and comparing players and teams as well. So it's got this comparison matrix that it calls as well. And obviously, I've also set up a little I've also looked at a few YouTube highlights there as well for us to comment on and to look at. So I've put on the screen, if you guys can see on the screen, let me make sure that you guys can see it too. And let me know, let me know your comments and thoughts so far as we talk about the players. I've included in the comparisons Mark Gahey, obviously the first one up. I should have put Fabian Schär, but I've got Mark Gahey first. And this is from the season of last season, so strictly for the Premier League. So it's the Premier League stats per game. So we're not looking at totals per game. So per 90 minutes. So we're not judging. So you're going to see if you change the stats that you see there for anybody who doesn't know, essentially there's a difference between total and per 90, and that is per 90 is average based on the amount of game time recorded by your selected player. So you would see that some of these players have played 1,000 minutes, 2,000 minutes, 2,500 minutes, 3,000 minutes. So these stats are taken in average of those rather than per game. So that's what we're going to look at. So Mark Gahey's on the left, Edmund Tapsoba of Bayer Leverkusen. Obviously, he's won the Bundesliga last year. I think they went undefeated last year as well in the Bundesliga. Also a finalist, and I think they won the I forgot what the German version of the FA Cup is. I don't know if anybody knows it. You guys let me know that one. So he's had a very, very, very successful season, Edmund Tapsoba. And obviously Fabian Schär's there as well, because we want to know, are these players an upgrade on Fabian Schär because they're coming in to replace him? And if they are an upgrade, how much more of an upgrade they are? And to the right of Mr. Fabian Schär, we have Axel Disasi. So we're going to make those comparisons and see where that leads us. I think there's a few more comments in. Dan Brown, welcome Dan Brown. Gahey is not a player brought in for resale. It's because he is the player they really want and plan to keep long term. So I guess they would pay what they must to get done as long as it's fair. And you know what? That I think that could possibly be. I wouldn't be surprised. He's going to get a very significant contract, and as well. And I think that he's definitely looking for that long-term investment in Gahey. I think if we're looking at our backline, maybe 6 months to a year's time, you're looking at Livramento as left back, Sven Botman as left centre back, Gahey as right centre back, and Livramento as right back. And if you look at that backline in itself, youth, ball playing ability, you got defenders that can pass through the middle. You got defenders that can carry the ball. It allows our team to press up and have either 3 guys at the back or just 2 guys at the back if we're feeling really confident in games on that. And obviously that Mark Gahey is a big that right centre back position is going to be a big part of that as well. Something else from Dave Eddy. I think the 2 Leverkusen players. And before I go into it, what do you guys think of that back line of Hall, Livramento, Mark Gahey, Mark Gahey, and Sven Botman? What do you guys think of that? And obviously, we're going to talk about the goalkeeper at the moment. Pope is the man as well. Obviously, there's also rumours of James Trafford coming on as well, so we'll talk about him as well. What do you guys think of that back line? For me, it's exciting. So Davey Eddy again. I think the 2 Leverkusen players, Tapsoba and Cassano, thank you for that, are monsters. I got really excited when I heard those names last night and today. And you know what? In particular for Tapsoba, because obviously, as you know, Davey, we've been linked with Tapsoba for absolutely ages. And it gives you a lot of time to look at highlight reels, but also Dennis Wise style, I suppose, but a little bit of that, but also a few football games, especially in Europe when they played. I think Tapsoba, I'm so surprised that teams haven't looked into Tapsoba a lot more. I'm not gonna. He's absolutely a physical specimen, tall, athletic, pace, power. His ball control is exceptional. From what I can see, I'm so surprised that more haven't looked into it. And so, yeah, and what else? Tapsoba would be great, but very unlikely. 95 mil release clause and wants to say so tough. And this going back to how we saw the news today, Tapsoba gets talked about by Dave Ornstein, and I'm going to speak a little bit about Dave Ornstein as well lately. And then within, was it half an hour, 45 minutes, it gets shut down. People have come out saying no, it's not going to happen. This, that, and the other. So it just kills the dream straight away, But then you see that on Sky News, they said, Newcastle open talks with Edmund Tapsoba, and you're like, what's going on? So people are so quick to release information. I think, and look, speaking of Dave Ornstein, tier 1 journalist, especially when it comes to transfers in general. Let me know what you think, because typically when Dave Ornstein, we call it the Ornstein bomber nowadays, whenever he drops transfer information, it's very likely to happen. But typically when he drops information, it's like like I said, it's likely to happen. It's literally what he's talking about. For me anyway, he's talking about so-and-so team have reached agreement, personal things done, likely to be wrapped up type of thing. But when it comes to Newcastle news, like for instance today, he's talked about Newcastle opening talks of potentially opening talks of opening talks of Tapsoba, but still Mark Gahey's on the other line, and it's very 50-50. So I don't know whether sometimes we know that they want to make a little bit more news. So maybe it has gone. The conversations of Tapsoba have gone a little bit further, but once he's not going to reveal that just yet, he's going to make a little bit more of a story from it. So then maybe it's a little bit more advanced. But then obviously we had earlier information when he talked about Mark Gahey last week, and he was like, oh, look, you know, they've opened talks. Well, no, a couple of weeks ago, when he first dropped, a couple of weeks ago, they've opened talks. I'm surprised that he's kind of doing that open and talk stage. It's very 50-50-ish. And so, but then obviously now it's longed out. It's become this saga. So I'm like, what's going on? You know, and obviously then the Telegraph comes out, they're 5 million apart, then they're not. It's just, and then when the BBC News starts getting involved into your transfer news, my hopes of it ever happening begins to fade. I don't know about you guys. What did say Dave there? A reputable journalist said last night Cassano was going to ask for Palace for 45 million. Yeah, I saw that as well. So a lot of it's not just like your Daily Star journalists are coming out saying this stuff. I saw that one on Cassano. I saw, obviously, I forgot who reported on Tapsoba. Obviously, Sky News reported on Tapsoba. Ormsby reported on Tapsoba and Dizazi. And but then the Telegraph literally just said, "Hey, Newcastle are edging closer with Gahey." So you're like, what's going on? You know, what's going on? So if all those things are true, going back to the subject at hand, if all those things are true, going back to these players, Mark Gahey, Edmund Tapsoba, Fabian Schär, Axel Disasi, who would be the best choice for Newcastle United? And sometimes the best player out of these guys, the best players out of these guys may not be the best fit for Newcastle. So we got to take all of that into account. I'm sure Paul Mitchell, Eddie Howe is taking all this into account. So I've used Squawk. Obviously, I'm focusing on with defenders. I haven't taken in stats like goals and crosses and stuff like that because, you know, for stats that are relevant to midfielders and strikers and goalkeepers, I've tried to focus in on stats that are relevant to defenders, but also relevant to the modern defender and the defender that I think Eddie Howe is looking for. And you guys let me know what you guys think, what you guys are thinking, because primarily if we're looking, because I've had a lot of time to look at Mark Gahey and others, primarily not only is he going to want defenders that can defend, especially at right centre back, but especially with that role, that right centre back role, if we're taking Sven Botman as obviously the core, that left centre back, the future going forward, and God willing, after his, you know, as he's recovering from his ACL, he's going to be the Sven Botman that we've seen play for Newcastle in his first year. He's a more defensively minded defender, if that makes sense. So he's not necessarily going to bomb forward. He's excellent on the ball. He's good at passing through the lines, but he's not going to be your John Stones, your Gvardiol bombing into the midfield, carrying the ball and laying it off to Bruno Gomes, if he's really feeling himself, laying it off to Isak. That particular job, and even in a defensive sense, he's going to be the guy that's doing the headers. He's going to be the guy that's clearing up the mess. The right centre-back role, which Fabian Schär is currently doing, that's the person who I think is going to be the more proactive in the press. So going into the midfield at times, especially without the ball, and supporting Bruno and supporting the midfield and trying to pick the ball off the defenders as quickly as possible and helping in that regard. But also, if we're looking at the Mark Gahey Tapsoba type of profiles, these are ball carriers. Yes, they can pass the ball, short passes, long passes, but these are guys that can carry the ball into the midfield, into the attacks. Your John Stone types, your Guardiola types, profile of players. And so that's what I think Eddie Howe is looking for. And that's another way a team moves up the pitch, is to have ball playing centre backs. So yeah, and as you said, and I'm going to go into before, and so going into the comparisons and looking into those profiles, we're gonna see which one of these folks is the better fit. We've got Dan Brown. Gahey is an Eddie player. I think so too. And Davey Eddie Kelly is solid. Oh no, it's not. Sorry. Regarding, what am I reading here? Regarding our back. Did I get the right one? Yeah. Regarding our back line, I am a big fan of Lloyd Kelly. I think he's a class kid. Loved him in Bournemouth. Do you know what? And I saw him live in the pre-season games as well. Fantastic, tall, athletic, really good with the pass. Very, very, very confident as well. I really like him too. Yeah. And Dan Brown, Kelly is solid. Hall will likely be pushed up into midfield in periods of the season, so Kelly will be vital. You know what? I'm going to start that comment about Hall and Kelly. I'll have a question for all of you guys about that. Davey Eddie, I like Gahey. I've got to say, just these other names that are coming through mix it up, don't they? They do, and I'm going to mix up a little bit more now by actually now getting into the comparisons. All right, so Mark Gahey, obviously we can see Mark Gahey games for all of these guys. 25, 28, 36 games for Fabian Schär. Had an outstanding season for us, I believe. And you guys know we had 10 plus injuries throughout the season. And so annoying sometimes when I watch, especially so my colleagues' top six shows or shows around the top six and things like that. And, everyone's talking about, and they did have serious injuries at Man United and Chelsea. And they're like, oh, we had the worst. I'm like, Newcastle were the Man City of injuries last season. So to have your regulars in Fabian Schär, Anthony Gordon was an absolute godsend, and also the rise of Lewis Miley. But I won't get into that. So yeah, Fabian Schär compared to the others played the most games than Axel Disasi, Esmond, and there could be different reasons for that, injuries, but also if you've got a good squad, as Bayern Leverkusen do, you can rotate players a lot more. All of them similarly in terms of starts. Well, Gahey had 23 starts. That Sober had 23 starts. Fabian had 35 because we needed him so badly. I don't think you can get a repeat of that this season. And Axel Disasi 29. So I did include goals, and my apologies. I don't know. I think I shouldn't see who scored. I think Fabian Schär scored that opening goal for us in the season, if you guys remember. Now, going into the pass, and obviously we talked about this, open play passes completed. The outstanding one, obviously, for this is Edmund Tapsoba. And we all know that under Xabi Alonso, Bayern Leverkusen just played exceptional football. They went invincible. They went invincible in the Bundesliga for a reason. And I think he's a big part of that. Like 74.7%. His passing his open play passes completed is absolutely fantastic, and he blows the others away. And you have to also be careful. Obviously, Axel Disasi, second, Chelsea are more possession-based team, and then Fabian Schär. I know that Mark Gahey comes last in this, but if you guys all remember, Crystal Palace, at least for the first 6 months, 6 months of last season, were still under Roy Hodgson, who came out of retirement and playing very back to the wall football. Glasner took over, and that's when they became a pressing team. I would wager, and I haven't seen this, that Mark Gahey's open play passes vastly increased under Glasner. So and we're going to find out, well, I was going to say, if we're going to find out this season if that improves, because he could be playing for us. It would have been interesting to see last year, in retrospect, had Glasner started at the beginning of the season with Crystal Palace, if those open play passes, which is going to be important for Newcastle, would increase. And I think the case that would be the case. I've included chances created in this as well, but for defenders, I'm not going to focus in on them too much. Obviously, Tapsoba tops it, but that's definitely not the be and all. Again, interestingly, passes actually attempted, and obviously Tapsoba again tops that. And so you can just see how important he is. That he's also topping the passes completed. He top passes attempted and passes completed. So I was at 77.1%. He's got a passing accuracy, Edmund Tapsoba, of 91.4%. That's incredible. Axel Disasi, who gets a very bad rap because of his his season stint at Chelsea, is at 90%. He's at 90%, which is really high. Obviously, Fabian Schär doing really well again at 83. They're all high, 83% for Fabian Schär and 87.2% for Mark Gahey. So all of these guys are good at passing the ball, are ball playing centre backs. Long passes attempted. Fabian Schär is the highest. But again, this could be down to how our teams play in terms of direct. Newcastle, I think, both Newcastle and Crystal Palace, for instance, are a lot more direct in comparison to Chelsea and Bayer Leverkusen, in my opinion. So you might see those long passes be a lot more of a factor in terms of that. So very, very interesting. I'm going to go to the comments as well as what do you guys think so far? So Disasi would be a no, though. Yeah, but tell me about that, Dan Brown. Why would it be a no for you? I'll be really interested to know that. The next one is Davey Eddie. Kelly, confident and smooth like a Rolls Royce. Indeed. I personally think Hall may be pushed up in time. Oh, yeah, sorry, I read that one. Yes, and I think I starred it. That's why it's there. I'm going to go back to that. So, all of them are ball playing centre backs. All of them attempt lots of passes and everything else. Edmund Tapsoba seems to be, the standout. But there's different reasons for that. But he's had an exceptional season last year. So moving on, long pass accuracy again. Edmund Tapsoba, 57%. He's between 7 to 10% higher than anybody. Here again. Then it's Then it's Fabian Schär for us, and then it's Mark Gahey at 48%, not too far from Fabian Schär, very similar to Fabian Schär. And again, had he played under Glasner a full year, I wonder if that would be a lot more higher. Passes completed in the opposition half, and we talked about this is obviously playing in opposition half. We talked about bringing passing through includes passing through the channels, not just passing to the goalkeeper or to the man next to you, which has its importance in different parts of the game, but passing in opposition half. Tapsoba obviously tops that. As you guys can see, he's at 39.2. And he tops that by a country mile. But again, Bayer Leverkusen had an absolutely exceptional year. Fabian Schär comes last, but we all know what happened to Newcastle that year. We literally had a 17-year-old, a gifted 17-year-old in the form of Lewis Miley and Longstaff. And it was very difficult for us to be able to hold the ball, to be in a position where we can hold possession. We weren't, we were very, very low. And then obviously Axel Disasi, pass complete no half. Yeah, Axel Disasi doing well again for Chelsea. Again, this is why he's been mentioned. Passes completed no half for Mark Gahey. Again, even lower than Fabian. So again, different reasons for those things, but Mr. Tapsoba tops the lot. Again, he tops the lot for forward passes. He's head and shoulders above everybody else. And then obviously Axel Disasi, I think Fabian Schär follows after that. Backwards passes is Axel Disasi. Sideways passes is Tapsoba. Now, take-ons overrun. So these are essentially attempted take-ons, running with the ball. Those that have been successful and unsuccessful. And I think this is where take-ons and running with the ball, I think this is one of the key aspects that Gahey himself has. So where are you? Did I go backwards on here? Take-ons overrun. Tap sober. It's not significant, but it's a little bit high. It's not a problem. Oh, sorry, take-ons is a little bit further. I'll get into that as well. But if we look at duels contested, Fabian Schär tops the lot. There's different reasons why duels contested can be higher. If tap sober, if you're on a team where you hold the most possession, it's, you know, you're gonna, you know, I would think that you have less likely the need to be tussling for the ball. But it's still good to see the fact that Fabian Schär tops it. That's going to be a part of your game anyway. Duel contested, Fabian Schär tops that. Then it's Tap Sober. Then it's Axel Disasi. And then it's Mark Gahey, interestingly. But also you can see, yes, obviously every player, every defender has to contend. But I think in his role in a defensive line, I think it was Anderson, who obviously we found out today, Joachim Anderson, Anderson was the Sven Botman in that Palace lineup. He was the one that was staying back when Mark Gahey runs the ball forward. He was staying back when Mark Gahey goes into the midfield, supports the midfield, and is proactively going into tackles and trying to, you know, pick the ball off the defenders. Very similar in what I think Eddie Howe is looking for him to do when he joins Newcastle United. Take-ons completed. So, okay, so I skipped a few there. Fouls from tackles attempts. They're not, all of them are pretty low, to be honest. So that's not a problem. Take-on completed. Top sober, top stat. Take on success. Again, this is the part that's really interesting. Take on success. So how successful were they taking on the ball, maybe dribbling past players when they need to, taking it into the other half of the field. Tap sober, and you guys will see from the highlights, absolutely tops that list of 81.25%. Next, interestingly, is Axel Disasi. I know that in terms of, he doesn't always pass the eye test aesthetically, but statistically, his take-ons, his ability to push the ball up is pretty good. Then it's is it Mark Gahey? Yeah. Then it's Schär comes last. Then it's Mark Gahey with that take-on success. Now I think it would be a lot more higher if they were playing that high press football a lot earlier into the season. I think that's what Eddie Howe is looking at in terms of bringing him in. Let me look at your comments before we move on further. Dan Brown, he is more of a destroyer than the ball carrier. Oh, is that for Mark Gahey? Yeah, he is more of a destroyer than a ball carrier. Need a more technical profile to replace Schär. Okay, is that for Mark Gahey? Just clarify for me, Dan Brown. I think he might. Oh, he might be talking about Disasi. Would be a no though. Yeah, I think it's about Disasi. Yeah, you're talking about Disasi. We were talking about Disasi earlier. Okay, interesting. Yeah, very much so. Next, Davey Eddie. Disasi played well for Chelsea last season. It was their forward line that did not do the business. Yeah, I agree with that. Dan Brown, not saying he's a bad player, just sure he'd suit our system. Oh, that's for Disasi, yeah. Davey Eddie Philip, who would be your choice for centre half? I'm going to tell you right at the end. Disasi, yeah. I thought you were talking about him. Thanks for that, Dan Brown. All right, so moving on further. So take on successes. aerial duels 1. Now, we already know, if anybody's looked at Mark Gahey's stats, aerial duels is not his thing. Right? He's definitely not Dan Burn. He's definitely not Sven Botman when it comes to aerial duels. And that is not why Mr. Howe and Mr. Mitchell are looking to buy him. He's 5'10" as well. And so, aerial duels and aerial success rates is not something that they're looking for. And so that's why I think he's only just below. No, he's only just higher than Fabian Schär in that, Fabian Schär is brave as an ox. I don't know how many times you guys told me, like in the first 5 minutes in the match, Schär's involved in some 50-50 challenge, putting his body on the line and just risking it all to win challenges, and credit to him. But in terms of physical presence in the air, aerial duels 1, he's not Sven Botman, he's not Dan Burn, and he's not been asked to be those things necessarily. So I'm not going to be overly critical of Mark Gahey for that, because I don't think he's necessarily been called to do that, although obviously that'll be a part of his game. Again, even the success rate that's so surprising for Tapsoba to be so low for me. And I don't know if anyone can look at how tall Tapsoba is. I would say he's about 6'4", 6'5". You guys let me know. That aerial duel success rate is so low. And Dizazi is 68.87. He's an absolute unit. And you're right, exactly what you're saying. I think it was David said that he is more of a destroyer. If anyone can let me know how tall Edmund Tapsoba is, that's so surprising that his aerial duels is so low. Ground duels contested, so not one necessarily. We're going to look at the success rate in a minute. Ground duels, so they've attempted the rule about the same issue. So for 4.1, 4, 4.7, 3.5. Fabian Schär, in terms of contesting, is winning it. They're all Mark Gahey tops the lot in terms of ground duels 1, and now we're getting to the part where I think Mark Gahey is what Eddie Howe and Mitchell are looking at when they're looking at Mark Gahey. If you go a little bit further down on ground duel success, 67% for Mark Gahey. He's a good 6 to 17% higher than all the other three. He's higher than Edmund Tapsoba. And remember, this is per minute stuff, so there's opportunities there. So there's less of a variable there. And I know that obviously Bayer Leverkusen had more possession of the ball. That might be part of the reason why, again, the ground duels are a little bit lower. But still, I'll be interested to know that factor a little bit. But Mark Gahey is a good 10%, 10+% higher than Edmund Tapsoba in that. And we've also got to take into account that if Edmund Tapsoba is as tall as I think he is, his aerial duels is much lower as well. But ground duels 1, remember we talked about Mark Gahey being proactive and pressing up and hitting up. It helps a lot in terms of how Eddie Howe wants to set up. Someone mentioned earlier Lewis Hall inverting and supporting Bruno Gomes, which will be important. But then obviously you also leave a gap in behind. I know that Joe Linton can come and fill that in, but that's not always going to be the case. So if you can get your Mark Gahey and Lewis Hall can stay where he is to step in and support Bruno and making sure that he's there to support him if there's a recovery tackle that needs to be made. Again, it helps Newcastle defend against transitions, and this is the big part of why I think they're looking at Mark Gahey in the first place. Really interesting. So going back to your comments, guys, definitely appears as though Tapsoba is by far the best option, but probably the hardest one to get over the line. Whoa, yes, exactly. Oh, here we go. Eddie, thank you for getting the height. I thought Gahey was 6 foot. Yeah. No, I saw 5'10" on one of the scouting reports I read, and I think on SofaScore, but don't top me on that. Tapsoba is 6'4". He's 6'4", and his aerial duels are that low. That's disappointing. Such disappointing. I wonder why that is. I wonder why that is. All right, and last comment there, Dan Brown. Sometimes it's less about height and more about awareness. Yes, very true. Very, very true. Trips is really good at winning aerial duels despite being short. It's true, and so is Martinez at Man United. So yeah, and that might be a reason why they've really, Mitchell and Howe really invested heavily into Gahey rather than Tapsoba. Obviously looking Tapsoba now, but Gahey is the man that they really want. Yeah, so ground duels, clearances, he's a head and shoulder, he's above that. Gahey, he's ahead on that with Fabian Schär following. Block shots, they're all about in the same places, although Fabian Schär's higher. I think Fabian's had to block a lot more shots compared to the other guys as well. We all know the type of season that Newcastle had to have. Right, so touches of the ball. Going back to it. Tapsoba tops it by 1.5 miles. I need to kind of review some of their games. If Tapsoba does, if we do end up getting Tapsoba, he seems to be, especially on the ball, really, really key part of what Bayer Leverkusen have been doing, guys. Second, though, in terms of a touch of the ball, is Disasi. I can see why he might be a second. I'm beginning to see why Axel Disasi might be a third, possibly fourth choice for Mitchell and for Howe. Interesting. I know it's not the ideal choice, but there's some stats that are coming up for Disasi that seem to be really going into his favor. Excuse me. And Gahey is a lot lower. Again, I'll be very interested to see how that looks in the full season. I want to, if we look at Gahey's stats before and after Glasner, I think we're going to see something totally different. In my opinion, possession loss, I'm not overly worried about that, because I think for all the defenders, because I think Mark, Edmund, Fabian, Axel, I don't know about so much about Axel, but I think the others are being asked to, especially if we from what we know about Schär, he's the one that we look to pass in through the channels. It's not Dan Burn. So Dan Burn, in terms of possession lost, I think will be a lot lower. But I think it's Fabian Schär who's asked to make the more riskier passes through the channels, the long balls, and everything else. So I think that's why his ones are so high. And Mark Gahey's a lot lower. I think this is because he carries the ball a lot more than he's asked to pass the ball. So I think, for instance, Joachim Andersen, who would be doing the long balls a lot more, I think you would see his possession lost a lot more. Sometimes tackled, they're all in and about the same state. So that's their stats, guys. What's your thoughts? I got asked the question, who would I choose between all of those guys? I'm gonna answer that after I go through the highlights and everything else. So I've got a little bit more of a firm choice. But what so far for you guys, from what we looked at the stats, from what we know about Eddie, what we know about the team, what's you guys' thoughts? Who would you guys choose? Going into the comments. Davey Eddie, interesting stats there about Gahey. Some players are just very good in the air. I know it's different position, but Shearer at 5'10" was immense. Yeah, true, very true. That's true, Dan. Positional sense makes a ton of difference. I agree. Me too. I think, and if we are to assume that Tapsoba lacks positional sense, and that's why his heading is so high, I think maybe the concern then from Howe and Mitchell is, how does that translate into the Premier League, where the game plays a lot more, the pace of the game is a lot faster, it's more intense, it's more physical. We've all seen it. If anybody watches the Ipswich Liverpool game, the Brentford Crystal Palace game, even our own with forgot to turn on my plugs. Even our own with Southampton. Southampton are big boys, you know. And if you don't have that awareness, I don't know if you guys watched, for instance, the Spurs Leicester game and how Spurs conceded their goal. Vardy was just behind, just left alone, and just nodded it in. It's that kind of situation, that positional sense, what's around you, that would be of concern to Eddie Howe and Mitchell. I don't see that situation that you saw in the Spurs game, Leicester game. I see less and less of that happening at Newcastle, to be honest. And I think because of people like Dan Burn, who are very, very good in the air, and Sven Botman and their positional awareness. And so the worry maybe for Mitchell and Howe when they're looking at Tapsoba is that as well. But primarily, I don't think they're looking for him to be necessarily a header of the ball. But it's just disappointing at 6'4". And can that be something that can be fixed and can be taught? I think it can. And if there's any man that can do that, I think it's Eddie Howe. I think Eddie Howe. So Eddie. I think Eddie Howe would work brilliant with Disasi. I think Eddie Howe can do with Disasi what he did with Joe Linton, and then people will be, be called back to the French squad and all of that going on for Disasi, and everybody marveling how wonderful it is. Disasi again, Dan Brown. Dan Brown. Disasi would be the cheapest for sure. Disasi would be the cheapest for sure, and a straightforward deal. Yeah, we've got a good relationship with Chelsea. We're like we've already got a Lewis Hall, Livramento, Madueke could be coming. Gahey is like I don't know what you guys call that. What would you guys call that? Like a whole new situation going on there. So I'm gonna show some highlights of compilations of Edmund Tapsoba and Mark Gahey. I'll focus in on them, as I think it's likely that we're from the journalist reports, from looking at the stats, that it's likely that we're going to get either one of them. I say that, and the next day they say, we see Axel Disasi holding up the black and white scarf. Well, it's an assumption. I'm going to make it a big assumption that's between Tapsoba and Mark Gahey. Before I show the highlights, show me in the comments, guys, who you want me to play the highlights first for. Is it right Tapsoba or right Gahey? And I will play those highlights first, and we'll play about a minute, 30 seconds of those highlights, and we'll go through it together. And I'll go through the comments here. Philip, they have got Gahey at 1.82 meters. That's 5 foot 11, 6 inches. Okay, so it's 5 foot 11. So it's nearly 6 foot. It's nearly 6 foot. Thank you for that, David. Thank you for that. He's a bit taller. I'm grateful for that. Dan Brown. Plus, they have a week to shift 17 players. That's Chelsea. Yeah. I've heard people calling them human trafficking FC, disparagingly. So that's happening with Chelsea. So far, I've already got Tapsoba. That's from Tam Brown. So if I don't get more names, so we're going to play. In 5 seconds, I'm going to go for Tapsoba. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So let me share my screen with you guys, and we'll look at Tapsoba. See some highlights for him. This is Brazil. Is it Brazil Scout? I really like Brazil Scout because they show the player profile at the beginning, which I really like to see as well. And I'm going to comment my way through it because I do not want to be copywritten by Brazil Scout or anybody else. I'm going to comment anyway because it's what I'm here to do. Right. So as you guys can see, in terms of Mr. Tapsoba, his best attributes are pace, passing, tackling, composure, strength, interceptions, marking, and acceleration. So that's, and I think we're going to see a similar profile to Mr. Gahey himself in that. He's similar to, interestingly, if you guys see, Mr. Saliba, William Saliba, who's been heralded as one of the best defenders in the Premier League, let alone Europe. Todibo, who's now going to West Ham, and I know that in the past Newcastle are looking for him, and Usman Diomande, who we've been linked to in the past before. I really like, and I think the only reason that maybe we haven't gone for him is that he's not quite ready yet, possibly. He's 25 years of age. He's right-footed, centre-back, 6'4" at 84 kg. So he's a big fella. Strong, athletic. He's got a lot of good attributes that are going for him, and he's been similar to really good players. He's on here. He's valued at 45 million, very interestingly, and I think there was an article that said he will Leverkusen put a £50 million tag on him. Though I know from someone said already in the chat that he's got a release clause of 95 million. I think Leverkusen are a little bit more wise and put him a bit higher. See there, passing through the channels, traveling with the ball, interception, very high up there again. Long ball there to the other side of the pitch. Not too bad. Look at that. He's absolutely massive. Guys, have you seen this guy? Interception, pass, move. This is what he's looking for. And if you guys notice that the forwards don't really, when he has the ball, they don't really go for him. Lovely bit of skill there. I think they know they can't get the ball, and you kind of want that if you want to be a higher pressing ball playing team. Look at that, lovely interception, weighted pass, didn't rush it, pass one player, pass two player, pass three, laid off the pass. This is Eddie Howe. This is what Eddie Howe is looking for. Go ahead of there, so he's not too bad there in terms of headering. Lovely player into the box. Again, oof, look at that. So that's him using this again, traveling with the ball. Well, look at that, through ball into the strike. He could have got an assist there. Look at that. And this is what Eddie Howe's looking at. So if you've got a player that can take on the ball, carry the ball in that way, and use skill to get past players just like that, you then use Bruno. Oh, got adverts there. You then use Bruno a lot less than that, and someone like Bruno can move further up the pitch, and you want him to be further up the pitch as well. Again, lovely. It makes it look very easy. So that's Tapsoba. What do you guys think? I know it's a very short highlight there. That's Tapsoba doing a very good job there, looking absolutely fine. You know, I know highlights are highlights. They're meant to bring the best of you. You can also get highlights that make you look really bad. I thought he looks amazing. Oh, is the video not up, guys? Oh my word, have I been talking all this time on the video up? Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. Oh my word, the video wasn't up. My apologies. It's not on the screen. Okay, let me put it on the screen. My apologies, guys. Let me put this on the screen. Oh, so embarrassing. Right, so that's what I was looking at. Rewind that. Oh my word, it's up now. I can't believe it. So like as I was saying, yeah, it's been compared to William Saliba. It's been compared to all those other guys there. 6'4". Let me fast forward to the. It's going to play it anyway, I think. Yeah, here we go. Lovely jubbly there. So yeah, again, that's him carrying it forward, passing it through the channels. And like I was saying, when you got a guy that can carry the ball like this, great interception there. If you can imagine, it lessens the load on a Bruno to have to, you know, obviously his skill and his ability to take the ball from back to goal is exceptional. But when other teams know that we've got that main focus, that's the, you know, the only real technical player that can do that in our team. I know Joe Linton can do that to some extent, but obviously nowhere near as good as Bruno. When you've got a player that, when you've got a defender that can bring it out the back, has got that sort of touch, he can pass it short, he can pass it long. Look at that, lovely ball across the field. And here you've got an interception, past one player. There's a part where he gets past one player. That's it. Past one player, past two player, past three, pass it off, and moving on. When you got a defender that can do that, it is such a weapon in terms of from playing out the back. And I think it's absolutely exceptional that he can do that. Speaking of headers, that's him being dangerous in the opposition half. There's also highlights. I think this is the part where he's literally really up in the opposition half, adding that kind of attacking threat from the defense. Look at that. Passes it through the channel again. It's such an incredible. If you can imagine him bringing out the ball, passing the ball through the channel, bypassing the midfield, giving it straight to Gordon, giving it straight to Isak, it totally flips we're already direct, but it makes us even more dangerous. It makes us even more direct in what we do. So, show this last highlight reel. Again, lovely pass from out the back. Imagine that going to Isak. Oof. Guys, let me know what you think of Mr. Tap Sober. Like I said, highlights are highlights. They're designed to make all of us look good. You know, I'm not as good as Tap Sober, but I'm sure I can get some highlights, do some highlights of me. Probably impossible to make me look good. But from what I can see and trying to visualize it within our team at Newcastle, I think it would be such an incredible weapon. Moving on to Mr. Mark Gahey. Let me make sure I nearly made the same mistake again. I nearly took it off. Dan Brown, calm with good vision, would be spot on. I agree with you, Dan Brown. I agree. So the next one is Mr. Mark Gahey himself. Again, Brazil scout. This is the compilation for him. Yep, it's on the screen. It's on the screen there. Obviously, that's his Palace highlights. Look at that, strong in the tackle. Remember we spoke about ground duels 1? Not only 1, but look at that. Not rushing his passing. Really good. Just not rush. He not only does he intercept, but he passes the ball almost when he wants to. And that's the key weapon. He doesn't want you just to Eddie Howe doesn't want you just to kick it out the back and blast it out. You know, he wants a bit more control with the ball. That's him there collecting it again in the right place at the right time. He's got a low center of gravity. Mark Gahey, in the way that he turns and he looks after the ball. One-on-one duel there with Arsenal defender. This is the interception right there. So let me. Oh gosh, I'm on the wrong. But this, I have to go back a bit there. This is what Eddie Howe's looking for. Apologies, guys, if you guys were already into it. But this is. Have I missed it? Did I miss it? Maybe we'll show it again. No, it's coming up. It's coming up. There's a hit. There. This is what he's looking for. I think very specifically. Remember we talked about the defender he wants that right centre back to push up high to support the midfield. This is then defending in transition. So if you can imagine, that ball has come. Palace have just lost the ball to in the other side of the pitch. If that's Newcastle, Bruno's out the game, Joelinton's out the game, you know, the midfield is gone. And now all of a sudden we're facing the attack. If you got a defender that can be this aware, this quick in the duel, throws his body on the line, not only intercepts, but gets the ball to his fellow player, it's such a wonderful tool to have. It's incredible. And I think that's what they're looking for. That sort of awareness, again, exception on the ball, bringing out the back. Again, ground duels 1, awareness to see where the player is, passing it off. Fantastic. They're not letting the player get past them. Awareness again. Look at that. Not only does he get the ball, but gets it to a fellow player. Turn. Look at that. Not too dissimilar to Mr. Tap Sober, is he? And this is it. Exceptional on the ball. Uses his body again to prevent the player from getting it. Again, look how high up he is. In a lot of these scenes, look how high he's in the opposition half here. And he's gathering the ball. Oof. Oof. And laying it off. That sort of awareness to be able to do that. A lot of players can intercept the ball that goes into the stands. There's players that can intercept the ball, have the possession of it, but can they make the right decision with the passing? Look at that. Lovely cross. Again, on the turn, +1, +2, laying it off. That sort of ability. God bless Fabian Schär, but he can't do that. He hasn't got that. That's him against us. Again, awareness, ability there. Wow. I'm going to stop it there. So guys, what are your thoughts? I'm going to give you my thoughts in terms of who I'd want. In terms of that, we've looked at the stats, we've compared them, we've looked at some highlights between him and between Mr. Mark Gahey and Tapsoba. What are your thoughts? Of all the players that we've spoke about, Mark Gahey, Axel Disasi, Edmund Tapsoba, or maybe even we haven't mentioned someone that's come up as well. Who would you guys take? I'm going to go through the comments and then we'll go through who would choose. So 8-minute clip. So David Eddy, 8-minute clip of him on YouTube, but you can tell he's some player. Indeed, are you talking about Mark Gahey or Tapsoba, David Eddy? Let me know. Excellent player, Mark Gahey, quick and calm as well. Very intelligent. I agree with that. Very, very intelligent. And that ability is priceless. And it kind of explains why some of that big money is coming in for him. I'm not sure it's that much money, but exceptional. CAD ETE, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. Right now, whoever the club deem best, but get a deal done and try get a right winger too. We're going to do a show about a right winger. I can't wait to see what ring we're going to get, but we'll talk about that. Nice one there, CAD. Dan Brown, it's the pace that is really highlighted. Our board is a little bit less accurate than Tapsoba, but both would be absolutely fine. And you know what? With that, Dan Brown, it's exactly it. I think it's a very thin line, Tapsoba or Gahey. And I think in the end, in terms of the deal actually being made, is if Crystal Palace, as has been talked about today in the Telegraph, if the valuation that separates them is 5 million, and I'm sure there's a timeline. I hope there's a timeline on it. We've only got 10 days to go. That timeline could be 24 hours, 48 hours. I don't know. And if Mr. Parrish, for whatever reason, thinks that he's not going to sell him whatever, he's at his peak price. If that is 60, 65 million that Newcastle are paying, and I'm sure it's a lot up front, and he's not willing to take it, I don't see a problem for Newcastle to move on to Tapsoba. I wouldn't feel that we've gone for a lesser player in Tapsoba if it is Tapsoba. We've all seen the stats, seen the highlights. They're both exceptional players. Who would I go for? And I can't make. I think the only reason I'll go for Mark Gahey is because it's plug and play. He's already certified Premier League player in the England setup. He already knows some of the players in the Newcastle squad. He wants to come. He's ready to go. He's good to go. He could play against who we playing on this weekend? Sunday, I forgot now. Bournemouth. He can drop in and play against Bournemouth. I know it's a different system in terms of Newcastle, but it's not too different. Tapsoba will take a little bit of time to settle in. It's a bit unfair to make it that choice, but when it's that fine margins, I go for Mark Gahey at this time. But again, if Newcastle choose not to do it, I wouldn't be overly affected by that. I'm going to read the comments and I'm going to move to the final part of the show. Last 10 minutes, we're going to reflect on the game over the weekend. Did we play on Saturday? It was Saturday that we played, didn't we? And we'll talk about it. So, David Eddy, I think the club won't Gay. He probably go with, yeah, exactly. Him with Premier League experience. I agree with you there. Tap Sober video on YouTube. David Eddy. Dan Brown. Keith Downey mentioned earlier. I missed that. Keith Downey mentioned earlier that there is a right wing in the works, but likely alone with an obligation and has been linked before. So many guests. So my guess is Ferran Torres. I was going to say Madueke. Because I've been hearing a lot of Chelsea fans talking about that Newcastle going for a loan obligation, and we've got that sort of arrangement with Chelsea. I think we bought, I want to say we bought Tino Romento with the same arrangements. We definitely bought Hall with those same arrangements. You know, a loan with an obligation to buy up. So we've got that thing going with Chelsea. That's my opinion. I wouldn't mind either Ferran. We could do another highlight reel, another comparison of Ferran Torres, Madueke, all those guys. It would be interesting to see that, but I thought it would be Madueke, and we'll do a show on them too. Hashtag Sober got a 95 million release clause. Yeah, that's what I heard, Davey. That's what I heard. I forgot the source. If anybody can let David Eddy know what the source is of that, but there is a 95 million release clause. I personally don't think Leverkusen would do that. Yeah, 95 euros, so 82 million pounds. Yeah, he's not going to get sold for that much. Agreed about Gahey. Good call, Philip. Close call. Very, very close. Very, very close. So, in speaking of close, Newcastle versus Southampton. I'm going to go to the stats and I'm going to go to the game. When you got, what was the game like for you guys? I'll tell you straight away. I watched the game twice. Obviously, the first time live, the second time on the app, on the Newcastle app, the full matches. I don't know who. Let me know, guys, if you guys have been using the Newcastle app. I've been watching on the Newcastle app, and without the noise, without the commentary, and obviously without the emotion. Now I know the score and everything else, and so it's funny how my opinions on certain players and the overall game changed. So I'm going to tell it from both perspectives. Let me make sure you guys can see the. Oh, great! I was going to start talking about the stats, and I didn't. I wanted to check if I've included it. Yeah, here we go. Now I've put it on. All right. So quickly, I'll let you guys know that watching the game live the first time, I don't know how you guys felt, but I was uneasy pretty much throughout the game. I knew how Southampton were going to play. We knew how Southampton were going to play. For those that haven't watched, I did a pre-game preview for it. A high possession team, really good on the ball in general. So I was expecting that. I wasn't expecting for them to be that good on the ball and to have that level of tactics as well, especially when Southampton, speaking of Southampton, how they bring the ball out the back. I didn't think that the centre backs pushed up into the midfield that much, and that their midfielders would drop in. And I think that's what confused a little bit, in my view, not too much, some of our press for some of our players. In particular, I think Gordon, watching it again, this is speaking live, when I was watching it live compared to how I watched it later on, Gordon really struggled, had moments of struggle, I feel like, and I think Southampton focused on that left side with Gordon and Lewis Hall. I don't think Gordon did enough to protect Lewis Hall. I think Jordan had to step in quite a bit, and Kyle Walker-Peters. Who knew Kyle Walker-Peters? Well, I don't know. Was that good on the ball? And it was their wing backs and Kyle Walker-Peters and Sugawara on the other side who were really dictating the play. It was almost like the midfield was just there as a decoy, but also not as a decoy, but as at times as a decoy. But they weren't there to dictate the play like Kyle Walker-Peters and Sugawara were. And so it was very difficult for our press to pick them up. So it was our high intensity press against their intricate play, of which, at the beginning, when it was 11-11, I think Southampton in general, in terms of possession, obviously we're getting the better of. But anyway, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But it was a tight battle. And when I watched the game the second time, again without the emotion and everything else, I got to see just how tight that battle was as well. I'm going into the comments. Trevor Smith, man like Phil, big up broski, big up Trevor, man. Yes, good to see you, sir. We're live. And big up Trevor. If anybody's watched my video to the video vlog when I went to see Newcastle's pre-season game against for the Southern Cup for both days, my man Trevor was with me. And real big credit to him. He's an Arsenal fan. He's not even a Newcastle fan, but me, so big up to him. And we've been watching games together for nearly a decade now. So big respect to Trevor. All right. Dan Brown, app has some problems streaming from it. It's glitchy. Okay. Streaming. So what, live games? Do you mean live games, Dan? Let me know that. I didn't know that live games what were there? David Eddie, got to say Kassan is very similar to Observer. He's really good. I'll look him up, Davey. I'll look him up. Dan Brown, Southampton were helped by getting away with murder throughout, thanks to that Mel Paulson. Hey, what can we do? What can we say? So obviously, the momentum you guys can see from let me make sure you guys can see. Yes. So this on the left here, this is the momentum bar. This is the is it called the momentum bar? I forgot what you called it. What do you call it? Yes, the attack momentum bar. Where Southampton are in the blue, we're in the green, you can see just how much they had. And obviously, in terms of attacking momentum, Southampton had. Before the red card, it was a little bit more closer. Obviously, they had a little bit more momentum than us, but it was a lot more closer. Then after that red card, it went absolutely towards Southampton way, especially in the second half. But obviously the goal came from that bit of momentum that we had, and we had that clinical edge, which was good to see from us. Highest rated players. Let me know who you guys stood up for you guys. Obviously, Joelinton and Bruno, Nick Pope. Again, it's when I talk about ratings of players, when I was watching the game first time with the emotion, the only player that really stood out for me, or players that stood out for me, was Joelinton and a bit of Isak, and I'll talk about Isak in a moment. But Joelinton and Pope and Burn. But that's because I think I was, to be honest, I was unnerved by how much Southampton had the ball and they were coming. And so every time I saw Joelinton, making those crushing challenges, Burn headering the ball away, being in the right place at the right time to intercept, clear the ball, Pope making the save. So I was like, my ratings in my head were getting a lot more higher for these guys in particular, but they all played well as well. Watching the game back though, again, without the emotion and everything else, what I noticed especially that the team played really well. Yes, not in the sense of we had possession. You wanted to see a little bit more dominance, but the game was what it was. Southampton had the possession. And before that red card, it was a lot more to and fro in terms of attacking moments. Yes, that Southampton had a disallowed goal. Obviously, there was an offside, but they didn't really have that many shots on target. Whenever we attacked, from what I saw, we had the shots on target. Or we had, I think, a lot more. We had chances that seemed a lot more clearer than Southampton's. Speaking of, so for me, straight away, Joelinton was man of the match in my position, in my view, and he to me seemed a lot more all over the pitch, but obviously he's covering that left side, did a fantastic job. Obviously scored, showed a real clinical edge in terms of in front of the goal, got himself in that right position. Ground duels 1, 10, aerial duels 1, and he's used a lot more when Pope does kicks out from the back or not. You know, Joe Linton is the man that they look for to win those headers, and he doesn't really well. Sometimes he just chests the ball down. It's incredible. He did really well. Clearances 6, block shots 2, interceptions, fantastic. Bruno Gomes was, again, when I was watching the game, it was only until the last 20, 30 minutes or so, I was like, oh, okay, he's playing well. But then when playing the game back, Bruno played fantastic throughout the game. He was absolutely everywhere. And as always, as you guys can see from his heat map, can you see his heat map? Can you see his heat map? Yes, he's absolutely everywhere, Bruno. I know he's not as fast as Declan Rice, for instance, and all of that, but he covers the ground well, and he uses his ability to win fouls. Yes, I said it. We know it. Bruno Gomes wins fouls. He puts his body in the way, and he does it in exceptionally good moments. And I don't know if you guys noticed as well, now, when we turn into prime Atletico Madrid with, and the dark arts, we've got Joe Linton, Bruno, and Pope. Now, I know Nick Pope's got an innocent face, but goodness gracious me, we turn into prime Atletico Madrid when those guys are back. I liked how we managed the game a lot better. And again, this is me watching it back. Accurate passes. This is under threat. Decent from Bruno. He did exceptionally. Ground tools 117. It's a 12 out. Sorry, excuse me, 12 out of 17. Phenomenal. Block shots, clearances, tackles, total tackles 6. He was absolutely everywhere doing everything. And I was impressed with Isak a lot more as well. He's covering the ground. He's trying to protect the channels a lot more. I liked what I saw from Isak. And then again, watching the game back, I was a lot more calmer. And look, the red card came, and we were when I say back towards the goal, we weren't on the edge of our box so much. We were in a final third, but it wasn't, Southampton didn't totally have their way. And I think apart from the Diaz miss twice, obviously Lewis Hall cleared from the line, and Diaz missed or whatnot. They didn't create too many other chances. And so, look, where was it? Yeah, look, there was the stats in the first and the second half that I wanted to show. I can't find it. But yeah, the game was a lot closer essentially before the red card. And then obviously the red card changed a lot. What I'm hoping for, and you guys let me know, what I'm hoping for by the time I get into the Bournemouth game. Yes, my ratings for a lot of the players rose a little bit after watching the game without the emotion and kind of seeing it back. But I want to make sure, we lost to Bournemouth last season in their stadium. I don't know if it's a theme in terms of pitches that are smaller. So Bournemouth, Luton, Chelsea, well, because they're smaller, it requires a little bit more technical ability. In my view, we suffer because we in my view, we don't have the technical players as much as other teams do. So I think we suffer a little bit in my perception. We need to be better on the ball. We're still getting fitter. We're still getting our fitness back. I think a lot of teams are. I know it was an actual game, but that still felt, looking back at it, we still had some pre-season fitness there as well. It's a little bit more rustiness or whatnot. But I think our mentality won the game. What I'm hoping to see in the Bournemouth game, and do look out for my pre-game preview on Friday, it's coming out for that. I'm hoping to see even more intensity, better on the ball. I'm very happy about our finishing, especially in front of goal. I feel like we're very direct, we're very deadly in front of goal. 85 goals last season. I wouldn't be surprised if we'd be that this season coming up as well, especially with a new right wing forward, especially with Toon Army playing. It's going to be immense. And the right centre back that can pass through the channels, as you can see, Gahey and Tapsoba can do. I think we can score a lot more goals. So I want us to be better with the ball. Hopefully fitness will improve. Keep our discipline. Right, Mr. Shah? We'll keep our discipline and we'll take it from there. But let me know what you guys think. I'm going to wrap this up. I'm just going to read the final comments and we'll take it from there. Davey, Eddie, Philip, get in touch with Steve Rafe. Get on his show. Build your base. You deserve more than me and Dan beating on. Davey, I really, really appreciate that. It's great show on Steve Rafe as well. Yeah, why not? I'll do that. I really, really appreciate that. So encouraging. No, and I appreciate for all your comments. You guys really, really made the show. You don't know, whenever you do the show, you can have nobody here, or you can have folks like you here. So you've got to be prepared. Speaking about myself, I'm speaking able to either just be talking to yourself or you're talking to people. So it's really good to see you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoy the show. And my man Trevor as well. Dan Brown, yes, youth team and women's games, NUFC team. Okay. Yeah, the youth team. I did actually watch the youth team game as well with Trippier. I know those guys. I know people keep talking about Trevor Sanusi, and he's a good player. But I was more impressed with Munda. I don't know what you guys think. Hey, we have a Trevor nowadays. Dave, Eddie, Mighty Joe Linton, excellent. Burn, Bruno in the second half. Pope, Kelly when he came on. Yeah, Kelly had a good game. Eddie, Dan Brown, Eddie wants a whole team of J7s, brick wall to get through. Yeah, I agree. Livramento, I got to see him live. I've got to see him at the airport. I don't know if you guys can see a thumbnail. Got to meet him and get a photo with him. He's turned into a brick wall, I'll tell you that. Isn't that right, Trevor? Dan Brown might improve with Tonali coming back. Definitely will. And Dave, Eddie, Lewis Hall did a great goal line clearance, but if Kelly did not come on, we were not getting 3 points in my opinion. Could be. Kelly did a good job, honestly. David, Eddie, last November we got slaughtered by the ball. I hope we've learned from that. So do I. And on that bombshell, guys, I'm going to wrap this show up. I want to thank all of you guys who stayed with me for this hour and 22 minutes. It was really, really good chatting with you guys, going through the players. Mark Gahey, we're waiting for you. Bournemouth, we're preparing for you. Big up to the chat. Big up to all of you guys that came on. My next video will be on Friday. I'll be doing pre-game preview. If you guys want me to do more live shows, do let me know. Send me in the comments. I'm going to do live shows on Wednesdays, and I'm going to do the pre-records for the pre-game reviews, pre-game analysis on Fridays. But if you guys want to join, that's talking a lot more tactics. But if you guys want to join me on that, do let me know, and I'll turn those shows into live shows. Make sure you guys enjoy the rest of your evenings. Until next time, guys, God bless and take care of yourselves.